this will stand for free your mind and your soul. Yo, half the story has never been told. Ladies, you got to demand what you want, and what we want is respect, right? Yo, this is up on the track, I know so you have to deal with it right. Freedom every time for the sisters. Check this. Watch this.
Here we go now. Listen, if I'm boom boom rule, I be the ruler like Slick Rick. Hit with this quick witted Adidas wearing chick. Papa got a brand new bag. Mama got a brand new Jag or go tag. I ain't no old hag. I represent not only in the kitchen, in the bedroom, but also in the boardroom. So give me more room. Deny my opportunity. You in jeopardy. Yo, set me free. Don't hinder me. Let me be.
I'm fighting for freedom. I got the heat in case you need them. Straight soldier. Ain't nobody told ya. Hold up on them lies. I know your games and your plans.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fabulous evening on the Book Slam Xtra. I'm your host, Jules. Hello, afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is another week. It's gone so fast. I have had a very interesting week. I would love to hear about your weeks. Make sure you make a comment in below. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to find out what you've been doing. I've had a fun week. I actually ended up going to a school and doing a school visit as an author, which was really cool. And I got to dress up in a Cousin It. I don't know if you remember him from the Addams Family, with like just a massive hair. And I got to dress up as Cousin It, which the kids absolutely loved. And I said that it was a monster from my new children's series, which is all based on worry monsters. And if you don't know what a worry monster is, why not? You should do. They're very important. They're little cuddly toys and stuffed toys that are used by children, particularly in classrooms, in schools, but can be used at home as well. To help children feel better. So they can either be given to the child as a comforter thing, or the child can sit and talk to the worry monster, and the worry monster will listen attentively. And what's even best about worry monsters is they don't tell any of the secrets to anybody else, which is quite nice. But yeah, the kids loved it. And I got to sign loads of books as well. And it was really cute. I got to take some lessons in creative writing, which was really, really fun. And some of the writing skills of these, like the year 3, 4, 5, and 6. So age 11, 10, 9, 8. So 7 to 11-year-olds, and it was really good quality writing. But on top of the really good quality writing that they did, I had a very, very sweet young man who came up to me afterwards with his creative writing piece that he had done, and said, "Jules, would you mind signing this for me?" Which I quite happily did. And I then ended up with a long line of them all asking for the same thing, which was actually pretty awesome. I loved it. And I suppose as an author, we like all that kind of stuff because it makes us feel good. So I'm just going to invite to the chat Adam, who's actually on the live stream. So I'm going to welcome Reese and Darkman Blues, who are also on Clubhouse. So hello to you too. And Indy's obviously working in the background as well. I felt a bit awkward doing the monologue. So I thought it was nicer having someone else to talk to. Well, look at me, the author, signing stuff.
No, I think it's totally relatable. I think any of us would be thrilled to have that moment of like, oh my God, people are giving us attention.
It was really nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like I had to go around to all of the classrooms as well, which was really cool. And sort of dressed up as Cousin It, as one of the monsters from my novel Gloom Loom. Awesome. And it was really cool because, like, Gloom Loom, in my children's series, all the monsters represent like the negative emotion that the children have experienced, and then there's all a magic into the world, and then so that was the closest thing I could find that kind of looked vaguely like him. And so Yeah, dressing up like that was really fun. And I got to go into the classrooms and talk to them a little bit about what I've written and, you know, the characters. And every single class I went into, two things that they said that was exactly the same in every class. Number one, what is the date of birth of my dog? Because obviously he plays a prominent role in it.
Okay.
So that was
important detail. Yep.
Was. And the other really important thing that every single class had, which I thought was super cute, was every single class had one child in it who had or knew someone who had a dog, cat, or rabbit called Buddy, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. So I'm not sure how true that is, but yeah.
We need to pick a birth date for your dog, apparently.
Yeah.
That's apparently key. And you chose a perfect name.
That's well, yeah. Well, and then I got asked a few times, like, why did you call him Buddy? And then it was so nice because I was able to explain, well, you know, it was more about when I was before COVID. Bearing in mind he's 3 this October. Before COVID, I'd planned on him being PAT trained. Do you know what PAT training is?
With another group of dogs?
No, not pack trained. Pat.
Oh,
like Pat.
I'm sorry. Oh, I misunderstood. I'm sorry. I totally misunderstood.
So
no,
Pat,
I don't know what that is.
No, it's fine. PAT training is, well, I don't know. You may have a similar sort of scheme in the US. But over here, it's where you take a dog or cat or rabbit, possibly other small mammals
Chickens,
as well.
You know, other animals as well.
Maybe. I don't know. And you get them trained to become like animals that can be petted by people who are either going through trauma or struggling with life or in residential care homes or in schools or various other places. And what you do is you take your pet along and you take your pet there, and then the people get an opportunity to, you know, pet it. So he was going to be trained for that because he's really, really chilled.
Yes, we do have something like that. Some type of service animal, yeah, that does exactly that thing, that type of thing.
That's it.
My dog that I've held up in the screen before, he's a Schnauzer, and they tend to be good for that type of thing. Our dog is a maniac; he's total chaos. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. The PAT training. I like that term. That's a cute term. That's a good term.
Yeah. It is cute. It's an acronym for, I think it's personal assistant training or something like that, or pet assistant training, something along those lines. But my other one we did search and rescue with. So he's Buddy 4. So he was selected out of the litter specifically to do the PAT training.
Wow.
And then COVID hit. So all the PAT training centres got like shut down over COVID. Right. So yeah, so I have a very, very chilled Cocker Spaniel who who isn't doing what I wanted him to do.
Children's books.
Who inspired my books. Yeah, he did. It was really cool actually, because one of the questions that I got asked is, what inspired you to write a book about your dog? And what was really nice was I was like, actually able to answer that, because you know, you hear lots of stories about, oh, well, my dog's just so nice, or my dog's so helpful, or, you know, I wouldn't be without my dog. And all of those are true. But probably what inspired it the most was I was walking home from a walk with them. And I always ask other dog owners if I'm walking past them, if my dog says hello to you, because, like, you know, that's the polite thing to do. You know, hey, we're British, we do that. And the woman was like, yeah, sure. And as he went over to say hello, and bearing in mind, he will say hello to everybody. He's one of these people who will go around to every single person, dog, creature living, and every single leaf and everything he possibly can in the park to go and say hello. Like, I cannot leave the park within an hour. It's just He has a better social life than I do. And so I was just like, yeah, sure, of course, he would love to say hello. So Buddy went over to go and say hello to this dog, and this dog went for him. Now, I think the dog must have been, I don't know what breed it was, like Staffordshire or Pitbull type size. And I wasn't bothered because some dogs are grumpy. Some dogs just don't want to be bothered. Some dogs don't like other dogs. Some dogs just don't want people in their space. So I was just like, no problem. Inside thinking, oh, that's really hurtful. Oh, Buddy just went, all right, carried on and walked off as if nothing had happened. Like, you're not going to let me you're not going to affect my bubble. Stay there. And so for me, I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Because I think that we could do with that, I think.
Take a lesson from that. Yeah, we can take something from that. Yeah.
For sure. Sorry, I have both dogs in here at the moment. So if you hear random snoring, like noises in the background, that's the dog. Dogs.
Yeah. I think mine keeps hearing us talk about him because he keeps coming to check and see what I'm doing. Yeah. Oh, and now he's barking. Hey. Let's not do that. Let's be friendly. We've talked about this. Whoa. Hey, you hear him? Whoa. That's way too
You're not talking about me enough. Talk about me more.
Yeah, come say hi. Come on. Come say hi. You're so rude. Well, okay. So he's barking and looking out the window. And he's doing this thing. I apologize for the noise.
It's fine. It's what they say, never work with children or animals, and yet somehow we end up doing both. All right, so book stuff. Now, you and I write in sort of similar genre.
Book stuff.
I know we have Reese on here as well, but she's on Clubhouse at the moment, so I don't know if she can hear, but she also writes. She writes in a similar genre to you, so it's weird because like we kind of. But Reese and I don't write at all in the similar genre. So it's like you kind of like span both, which is quite interesting.
There's a weird Venn diagram going on.
There's a book that I bought. Well, that I got bought for my 30th birthday, which is a long time ago. And I love it. It's about how to write a book by Jeff. I can't remember his name now, Jeff something. And he, on the front like inserts, has got this whole spectral diagram to do with science fiction and fantasy and all the genres and the subgenres and all the books and the TV series and the movies and everything else that goes with it. And it's huge. And it's so big that the writing is like font 6. And what's really cool is they all kind of like merge and blend. So you never really end up with a pure genre anymore that tends to be written. One of the most interesting questions I got asked by the children was, did I have any original ideas? Which
what was your response to that?
There is no such thing. Because although we can be original, I think you and I have kind of like
we've talked about this.
We've talked about this a little bit, yeah. Yes, there are original ideas to the point where they become yours and unique to you. Something somewhere along the line has sparked that original idea. Something has triggered that. And if you look at all the different genres of stories out there, where regardless of what medium they're in, they're all like they're all crossovers. Like you have Lord of the Rings, I would say that would be pure high fantasy.
I would agree with that. Yep, correct.
And I suppose, I don't know if it would be classed as the first original high fantasy, or I don't know. I know that his ideas came from his experiences during the war.
And mythology, he was a huge fan of Norse mythology. And yeah, so I suppose the first fantasies were ancient myths, if we're going to say that. But you're right. I would say that of the modern era, Tolkien was the first fantasy author. I mean, I know that C.S. Lewis is around the same time, but but his is definitely based in the real world. And like you're saying, this is a high fantasy that's in its own realm with its own languages. Yeah, its own geography, everything, all the stuff that he put into it.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I agree with you. I think that our first original fantasy would have been the mythology that we have today, say the ancient Greek mythology, the Norse mythology, the Native American mythology. And I like the back of your computer as well. I have actually been admiring it the last few times that I've seen it. Yeah.
There it is. Sorry, there's a reflection off of it. There it is. It looks better. Some sort
Is
of
that
monster.
I think that looks like a treant or a lesson or something like that.
It feels like a Studio Ghibli character to me, also.
So, well, one of the fantasy stories that I really enjoy is actually The Witcher, and the author there has also blended a huge amount of European mythology. But each country in Europe has its own mythology, as well as like a collective group of mythology, like the dragon, which we see in just trying to think now, like Harry Potter, for example. They're the traditional European dragon.
Right.
But then within each country in Europe, we each have our own sort
folklore and
folklore,
traditional mythology,
which is really interesting. So it was good. So it was a good week. It was just it was good.
It sounds fabulous.
It's writing. So because I know that there's several projects that I'm working with at the moment. I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
And so
we're keeping secrets. Okay, I got you. We're keeping secrets.
With the sort of like the projects that I'm doing with other authors, as well as the series, it's really cool actually being able to delve into so many different things. But do you do lots of research for yours?
I feel like I do. Yes. I with the fantasy novel that I have written and I'm working on the out loud read through right now. I spent I put a lot of my own childhood into the story, but then it required me to spend time with other people that were very different from me to be able to put their perspectives in. The queer aspect of my novel, I wanted it to celebrate all different types of queerness that I was familiar with, and even ones that branches of the amazing queer tree that included people that I was not familiar with. And so I made friends with people. I hosted groups where we all hung out and I got to talk to people. And I put a lot of effort into trying to authentically present a lot of different people across the queer spectrum as positively as possible, and just a celebration of people. And so, that was important for this novel. I have written other things that did take other types of research. I've written a short story that was based on a fairy tale, and I read multiple versions of the original fairy tale, as well as analyses of that fairy tale before I even wrote my own version, my own short story. And back to what you were saying, the analysis of the short story was saying that even though it was a folklore that people recognized from a specific time in Europe, this guy was saying, oh, no, it dates all the way back. It's the original story of Adam and Eve and whatever from the Bible. And I was like, oh, what? Come on. No, this is a separate story. It's different. But I feel like it confirmed what you were saying, that particular story dealt with names and the power of names. And that is what some people think that is happening in the Garden of Eden myth or story, however you want to describe that, scripture-y thing, that story. So I have done research on other things, and I have a dystopian story that I've just started writing. I'm only a few chapters in, but I feel like I'm pulling straight from every horror movie I ever watched to write that, and so it's a different type of research again. That it's my joy and the fun that I've found in horror and sci-fi movies over the years. I feel like I'm delving into that and taking things straight out of movies and books that I've read that were really influential, and I'm putting them into this new story, and I'm really digging that. So yeah, I do feel like I put research into it, whatever I'm doing. Yeah. And is that how do you feel about yours? Because I know yours is wildly scientific, but also fantastical. So what kind of research did you do?
I'm fascinated. This is going to sound really dark.
No, go for it.
I'm fascinated by war and military, and I'm also fascinated by how people are affected by bad things happening to them, and how they work through that, and how mental health illness manifests itself. So like, what are the trigger points for it? Now obviously I'm very aware that you don't have to have anything happen to you to have a mental health crisis or have mental illness triggered. I'm just making a disclaimer that I'm not trying to glorify that at all, and I'm aware that mental health crises can happen at any time to anybody, but I think for me and my own journey, I've kind of used that. I suppose we put a little bit of ourselves into our books anyway, don't we, when we write, and our own experiences. And I wanted to create a world where you had the outbreak of war and how that actually affected an individual who had not been equipped mentally or physically for anything to do with the war. And I wanted to fling as much as I could at her to see how she would cope with that. And the lead character in my first series, she really struggles with everything to do with that. She can't cope, and it shows. And so the research that I've done, a lot of it has been to do with military tactics, how to take a castle, how to lay siege to something, how to set out a battlefield, how to keep your soldiers engaged, how to lead properly, how to get your soldiers to follow your orders, to how to get your soldiers to keep fighting when when they're going to die, and things like that. And I mean, apart from the fact that it's been extremely interesting, obviously researching this, it's really opened my eyes a lot to what it takes for military commanders to actually keep their soldiers going. Because, like, if you know you're going to die, and you know you're going to die in a really horrible way, what would be the point of even trying? Do you know what I mean? So how would you, as a leader, keep those people going when they know there is no hope left? So that's the kind of stuff that I've been researching. And then I've also been in some... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, is that what your main character has to go through? Does she have to be a soldier in an army?
Yeah, so book one is really like the outbreak of war. It's really an introduction to the main character and the main characters that she's going to be centering her life around. But book two really is, I would say, the start of the story, because that's when her sister is kept in the castle. She ended up escaping without her. And her family, her sister's the only one left. And so for her, family is absolutely everything. And so her driver is to get back to the castle, but the only way she can do that is by creating an army, because there's no way she can get in otherwise. It's too too massively well fortified.
Right.
And so all of book 2 is about how she has to go about doing that.
Oh, so she's the leader of this army? I see. I've misunderstood. Oh, even more intense. Okay. So she's running this troop. Oh.
Yeah, kind of. So what happens is, well, I based her character actually off a blend, I suppose, of Boudica. Have you heard of Boudica?
No, I'm not sure of Boudica.
Should you? It's all right. It's fine. You're not British. It's fine. I forgive you.
Sorry.
So Boudica was the wife of the chieftain of the Iceni tribe, which is a tribe that lived during the Celtic era in Britain. They were based in Essex.
Okay.
So we're looking around 400 AD, roughly. Yep. I don't know the exact years. And so around this time, the Roman army invade. And so the Roman army invade with a force that the Celtic and Britain population had never ever seen before. The tactics were completely different. The Celtics were a little bit more guerrilla warfare, whereas the Roman army were not. They used more modern tactics. And they actually captured and killed her husband, or I can't remember if they captured and killed him or he died in battle. I can't remember which one it was, but he died. And she and her 2 daughters were captured, and her 2 daughters were raped. And she, in a fit of rage, managed to escape. She then went back to her tribe, built an army, and took the war back to the Romans and drew them off after numerous battles. And they left.
Okay. I love that parallel. Wow.
Oh, yeah. She was awesome. And the other one is Joan of Arc, who at 17.
Joan of Arc inspired a character in my book also. I can't, how can you not use her as a reference? That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, the 2 absolutely awe-inspiring women. And I suppose the third one who I would include in that would be Queen Elizabeth I.
Yep.
Who, although didn't go to war, she had this dogged determination, which at the time she was the first proper English queen we'd ever had, like in terms of like as we know them today. And so she ruled Britain with an iron fist. And
improved many things in Britain.
Oh, yeah. We had the longest period without war under her reign.
It's because there wasn't a man running shit.
I didn't want to say.
I'll say. I don't mind.
You're allowed to. There's no sexism.
Yeah. It's our fault. We did it all.
I'm not going to say nothing. So within those 3 characters, obviously they each have flaws as well. I kind of created Ray, and so that's how she was born, out of my interest of war. And her name is a shortening of the Norwegian Freya, which is the goddess of love and war. So, and I love Nordic mythology as well, and that's in my book too. I don't even know if I've answered your question. Sorry.
I use quite a few Scandinavian characters. Yeah.
There are very I've been to Sweden. It's a beautiful country. Really, really beautiful country. And they're so friendly as well. They're such a friendly country to go to. But yeah, I think that the Scandinavian, if we include Denmark as well in that too, because obviously they were part of it, very much. had some really interesting mythology. And then we had the Vikings.
And there's all that.
Yeah. So they had female warriors. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, their female warriors were very much revered, as in this, held in such the same esteem as the male warriors.
To me, if you're that badass and you're gonna go off and like slaughter shit, then yeah, you can do it. I'm gonna back up. I'm not gonna be that person, but I'm gonna cheer you on. You go get it, girl. Yep.
So that's kind of like what I've done. So in book 2, she forms this army, and it's all about how she has to try and go about doing that. And in order to do that, she has to sacrifice relationships, and it hardens her a little bit more, just like the book 1 did. Book 1 hardens her, but not enough. Book 2 hardens her more. Book 3 hardens her a little bit more. And as we go through the series, she just gets tougher and tougher and tougher on the outside.
How far have you planned ahead with this series that you're working on?
I've planned all 10.
You're writing book 3? 10 books? Nice. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't include.
You have that planned out already?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't include the short story anthology that I want to do as well. Yeah. So they're like separate from the main series. So yeah, so 10 books, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, what about you? Are you going to do sequels to yours?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. The end of my book is a beginning, is a brand new beginning. That's why the story is called The Starting End, because everything leading up to the entire, almost 600 pages is just getting to him to the end, which is the start of the next story. Yeah. And I have written multiple chapters in the next book. I'm not sure exactly how I want to organize it yet, because I want to tell some backstory. And so I'm playing with the formatting of how I'm going to tell the story. But yeah, I'm there. And I, like you said, I've done some short stories based in my world that are not part of the actual novel itself. And I don't have an end goal in sight. I love that you already know it's going to take roughly 10 books to write whatever story you've got. But the point of my story is less about the character. In fact, my elevator pitch doesn't even mention my main character once. Not the whole elevator pitch doesn't even mention Polly, because the world to me is a main character and it's sort of background, but the world is more important. And I like the idea that I could tell another story from this world that is completely unrelated to my first novel, but still fits into the world of the novel, like the short stories, but is a separate novel all its own in this other country that's over here and this thing, while this stuff is taking place over here and whatever. Yeah. So I don't have an end goal in sight. I just envision continuing to write more and keeping with the queer norm theme, that all my books will have queer people who don't have to overcome anything for their queerness. That's the point of this world, that it's just accepting of everyone, even though there are struggles and they have to deal with other issues. No one struggles for who they are, which I love, and it makes me really happy that that's part of my story. So yeah.
It's
but yeah, no end goal in sight. I'm gonna just keep writing forever.
Be a skeleton and still hang on, one more chapter.
I'm almost done, I swear.
It's interesting that you've chosen to have your world as your actual main character, as in, like, in a way, Ollie is just a person whose mind you happen to be resting in, and
Yep.
world itself is the character, and Ollie just happens to be there. And I think it's a really interesting premise.
That's exactly right. And I hint at little things about the world that I know, but I haven't. Oh, we saw Reese for a second there. Hi, Reese. I hint at things in the first novel that I know in my head that I haven't shared yet, that are like huge reveals about the world, and I'm looking forward to sharing those in future books. But I didn't want to give away everything all at once, you know. So I hint at things and I tease about things, and there's mention of well, I don't want to say too. Yeah, I'll read a little bit. I'll read a little bit in a while, and I'll share a little. Yeah, so
yeah, I'm going to get you to read in a minute. I was going to ask you something as well. It's just gone out of my mind. No, don't apologize. No, I had a question in my mind, and actually, as soon as like I started actually trying to think of the question and how to word it, it just disappeared. Oh no, that was it. Ollie, what is it interesting, isn't it? Character names. How do you go about finding your character names?
A major part of my name design was how they looked on paper. I picked parts of words that looked good. I have names that are part Vietnamese and part Norwegian, where the names are put together because the syllables look interesting together on paper. That has a huge part to play. But also, I wanted names that can be pronounced multiple ways, so the readers have their own freedom to, and this person, Ruai, is this, and I like this character, and Ruai does this and that. Oh, I thought Ruai's character, I thought her name was Rui, and you just, I pronounced it a little differently. I like that a lot of my characters have multiple ways that you could say their names, and in my mind, none of them are wrong. Especially since my book is, since you mentioned that Reese and I have a little overlap, I'll mention it here. The erotica themes in my book, I can't imagine my stories ever going to be turned into a TV show, so there won't be somebody having to say the names out loud in said TV show, so the names can be free to flow however the person wants to read them. And I'll give you a strange example. In the retelling of The Wizard of Oz from the Wicked Witch's standpoint, the book Wicked, the main character's name is Elphaba, but I read it in my head Elphaba, and I loved it, loved the book. It was so fun. I named my dog Elphaba, and it was years that I called her Elphaba before I actually saw the musical production and saw that they were pronouncing it Elphaba, which is different than the way I pronounced it and different than the way I named my dog. And I liked it. I didn't care. I thought that was cool that there was another way to pronounce the name. And I put that into my book, that multiple ways, and people can discuss how it's pronounced. And I'm not going to tell them they're right or wrong, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because how do you pronounce the main character's name?
Ollie. Yeah. Kind of like the British Ollie. That's sort of how I think it. Yeah. I had a friend, a Persian friend named Ali, Ali, and I adored him. I was really close with him for a long time, and so I feel like there's a little bit of that name in Ollie's name as well. So yeah, it's just from all over the place.
Nice. It's nice because sorry, go on. No, go on.
I was just going to say, somebody could pronounce it Oli or Ali. There's all sorts of different, I feel like, accurate ways to pronounce my main character's name. And one other thing about him, I never give a single description of what Oli looks like. In all my descriptions, and that's sort of what my strength is, writing descriptions, I never tell the reader what the main character looks like, so they can put however they want to portray him into the story. And I like that too.
That's really cool. I think I put very minimal in mine. Eye color, because it's important.
You're telling it from her perspective, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I spoke over you. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. It's fine. Yeah, absolutely. So she it is like in first person. So but like I only describe the really important stuff. Like she has really like long but really curly hair, which is important because of genetics. I'm not going to say anything else. And her eye color, which is also important because of genetics. And again, I'm not going to say anything about that either. I know it's not what you think. So yeah, it's So, but that's basically it. I haven't said how tall she is. I haven't said how how skinny or large she is. I haven't said anything. So it's literally however people wish to see her, really.
Awesome.
I have in my mind what I would like her to look like, but it's not really that important. What's important is what she thinks and what she feels and her experience.
Awesome. I fully endorse that idea.
It's an interesting way of going, isn't it? Now, I would really, really love to hear you read, because you didn't get a chance these last few times. So I'd love to hear you read some.
No problem. Yes.
Are you ready to read some?
I love tuning in, even if I'm not sharing my own work. Sorry, tripping over my words. No, I love being part of it. I love being here and listening in, even when you're interviewing other people and talking to them about theirs. Yeah, but I would love to read. That would make me very happy.
Oh, well, we love having you here anyway, Adam. So that's all good. All right. So what is it you're going to be reading for us today?
I think I'm going to read. Yesterday let me tell you what I'm doing right now. I'm working through an out loud read through of the whole novel to make sure it's prepared for not only printing but also an audiobook, to record the audiobook. And so yesterday I read through a scene where a group of people, including Ollie, including the main character, all go to a cafe and they have these really bizarre drinks. And so I'm going to read that scene just because it's interesting and quirky and strange. And so I'll do that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so whenever you're ready, so if you just introduce yourself, the name of your book, and I'm going to mute myself, and you're going to just have the whole screen all to you.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Over to you, Adam.
All right. So I'm Adam Andrews Johnson. My book is called The Starting End, and I'm releasing it soon through Jules's company, who you just saw on the screen, Danu Books out of London, and I'm really excited about that. We're getting close, and so I'm going to share a little section of this from it for you. This is from a chapter called The Cafe. The four came upon a quiet alley with a sign at its corner for a cafe ahead. They found its entrance and opened the doors. Several small tables and chairs were set up out front, but there were no other customers. "Hello, hello," called a skinny, mustachioed individual who came bouncing out into the street to greet them. "Happy Flower Festival," he exclaimed with a wide smile. He ushered them towards a table in his establishment. "And a happiest of flower festivals to you as well," Saren chirped back. "Do you mind if we sit out here instead?" Rui was already seated at one of the tables in the shade. Of course, the host replied. He turned and extended an arm towards the woman in the magnificent red dress. "And what'll it be?" he said in a sing-song voice. "What'll it be for you three blossoms and your sturdy-stalked stud? What'll it be to quench that which makes you thirsty? What indeed shall it be?" He flourished a handwritten, albeit artful menu of unusual-sounding drinks and placed it upon the table in front of Rui. "Oh, maybe give us a few minutes," Saren asked in a bright tone. He bowed and disappeared back into his empty cafe. She peered in behind him. "I wonder if that's a bad sign," she whispered. She and Saren took Ollie's hands and pulled him over to stand behind Rui so they could all read the menu together. His eyes were first drawn to the enlivening glow water, and he felt hopeful for a glass. But he continued down and read through the 4 types of mushroom teas listed. Their descriptions intensified as the menu progressed. Ollie was unsure about the 2 drinks that followed, disconcertingly containing the word mud in their titles. Finally, there were several fruit drink blends, and each of them also sounded unique. Glow water. Bottled at our hidden source, high on the slopes of fallen flame. Our glow water is a perfect tonic for the soul. Mushroom teas. Red mushroom tea. Brewed from wild red-cap fairy shrooms, carrot fungi, and ever-red revered mushrooms, this draft will have you feeling energized, clear-headed, and ready to take on the world. Gull fungi tea. We harvest our seagull mushrooms in the cliff caves just outside the Shon district's city limits. This pungent brew will leave your whole body feeling very mellow and relaxed. 3 sips of poison. Mushroom combo tea. A trio of toxin-containing mushrooms, Williams skull fungi, Thangal 8 tortures toadstool, and blind shroom. Each will stimulate your existence. This offering comes in 3 tiny doses, presented in our special micro teacups. Bring home your own micro mug today. Death shroom tea. Warning, must have a non-death shroom drinker present to order. Fungi fugue state is to be expected. Unconsciousness is common. Lucid dreaming, hallucinations, and amnesia are all possible effects of this mind-expanding tea. Order at your own risk, but enjoy. Memory muds. Farron mud. A rich, earthy draft made from freshly harvested, mature ronga roots, calming and meditative for relaxation, presented in a large bowl with about 10 servings. Farron Reserve mud. A rich, earthy draft made from freshly harvested, juvenile ronga rootlings. This will make you clear-headed, ready for a spirited discussion or a good book, presented in a large bowl with about 10 servings. Juices and blends. Liquid love libation. Triple L, as we like to call it, does just what it says. Share this mystical cocktail with the person you fancy and see if they don't feel the same as you by the end of it. A blend of Thangali heart flower fruit, sunfisher fire fruit, and thornberry dusted with ground mbanja fruit seeds. Fire fruit quartet. A combination of freshly squeezed Thwain fire fruit, coastal black fire fruit, sunfisher fire fruit, and locally foraged wildfire fruit. A tart blend of flavors to stimulate your taste buds, refreshing, energizing, and invigorating. You might need to go for a run when you're done. Thorny berry blend. A titillating combination of thornberry, blue drops, and whistle tree bark. It's our own special house mixture. Thorny berry blend will give a natural spike to your libido. Have one of these before your next visit to a salt love house. You can thank us later. XOXOXO. Not all customers are affected the same. They misspelled Thangali in the liquid love, whispered the woman in red, speaking under her breath in a husky voice. I know, Rui, Saren giggled, and added, I also noticed. She spoke in a hushed tone so that the proprietor would not hear her. The man walked back over to their table. We'll have 4 glasses of glow water, please, Saren said, and Ollie brightened. We'd also like a bowl of the Farron Reserve. She smiled at the man as he wrote down their order. I'd like my own cup of red mushroom tea, she added. Then Saren turned to her 3 companions. She asked in a bubbly voice, What are all of you having? Saren smiled pleasantly and pointed at the red mushroom tea description on the menu. She'll have the same, Saren answered for her. He was already writing it. Why are you crying? I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know if you can hear my dog, but he's like totally screaming and whining. Sorry, 2 seconds. Hey, stop. Calm down, hon. Okay, that's better.
All right, I'll just wait.
I'm so sorry about that. Did you hear him? He was like ringing in my ear. Oh my God, he was just like whining all of a sudden. Hey, calm down. It's okay. He's got a chew toy. He's got everything he needs. He was supposed to be so happy this whole time, and then he got all like upset.
He wants to have some fun with his daddy.
He normally likes listening to me read. I don't know. He's laying down again. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I pick back up where I left off, or have I read long enough?
Of course not. I'll disappear. Hang on a second.
I'm so sorry about that, everyone. Okay. Whew. Where was I? They're ordering their drinks. Yes. Okay. Okay. So the man walked back over to their table. Whew. We'll have 4 glasses of glow water, please, Saren said, and Ollie brightened. We'd also like a bowl of Farron Reserve. She smiled at the man as he wrote down their order. I'd like my own cup of red mushroom tea, she added. Then Saren turned to her 3 companions and asked in her bubbly voice, What are you all having? Saren smiled pleasantly and pointed at the red mushroom tea description on the menu. She'll have the same, Saren answered for her. He was already writing down the order, but then Saren waved both hands in front of her, making the man stop and look at her. She shook her head and frowned, changed her mind. Then the sprightly woman smirked as she pointed a dainty finger at the thornyberry blend. She nodded. A pen's line struck through Staren's initial order, and the man replaced it with her new request on his little pad. And for you, milady. 3 sips of poison, if you please. Ooh, Saren cooed. Good choice, Rui. And I heartily agree, the man added. Rui smiled. And what can I get for you, my good gentleman? The mustachioed man asked of Ollie. I think maybe I'll get the fire fruit drink, Ollie replied. The man jotted down the order, but Saren again waved both arms in front of her and shook her head. She repeated the action and pointed at the thorny berry blend and again nodded. He crossed off Ollie's order and scribbled down 2 hash marks next to Staren's drink request. Saren giggled. Their host turned and entered the establishment. It's got those purple berries you like so much, Saren said in a conversational tone that sounded a little too casual for Ollie. The ones Greenhurst grows in his Glen Garden, remember? In his own hushed tone, Ollie began to whisper the question, is this drink going to make me horny? Saren finished for him. That's what the name says. She said it rather more loudly than Ollie would have liked. We hope so. She laughed with glee, and her twins smiled so wide that her eyes were squinted shut. Rui grinned at the exchange. Oh, don't worry, Saren continued with a broad smile. We've always thought that aphrodisiacs were more for mental stimulation rather than actually being able to physically arouse a person. She winked at him and continued, I think the drink is supposed to make you worry about getting horny, which in turn then has you thinking about becoming aroused, which might end up turning some people on. I mean, it's got us talking about it. She stuck out her tongue at him and Rui laughed. It's not like there's some magical property in thorny berries that makes you horny, Saren continued. But don't get us wrong, she indicated with a smile at her twin. We think it's a great idea. The mustached man returned with a full platter and folded stand. He opened it and placed a large tray onto the rack's support. Each of them was given a small, sparkling glass of glow water, and all 4 knocked back their drinks. The man also transferred a large wooden bowl onto the table full of what looked indeed like brown, muddy water. Here's your fare in reserve, he said, and he placed 5 small versions of the wooden bowl in a stack beside it. He added a little dish of dried fruit and nuts, and Saren snatched something from it as soon as it hit the table. Finally, 2 glasses of deep red translucent liquid landed in front of Saren and Ollie. The thorny berry blend, the man declared, and I'll have the mushroom tea and poisons to you in just a moment. Saren smiled at him and reached for a nut as he vanished again. Her twin picked up one of the 5 small wooden bowls, dipped it into the mud, and used it to swirl the drink. She created hypnotizing patterns in the cloudy liquid, and once she was satisfied, she used the 5th bowl as a scoop and poured from it. Saren filled another of the little brown wooden cups with an equally brown draft, and she extended it to her twin. Right before taking the drink from Saren clapped her hands together once. Pap! It was a brief but enthusiastic sound. Ollie was just about to take his first sip from the thorny berry blend when Saren clapped her hands. It made him jump and gave him pause. Saren took the mug from her twin, tilted her sprightly head back, and the entire little drink disappeared in a series of big sips. She struck the empty wooden bowl down on the table with a strong hollow thump and sharply clapped twice more. Pat, pat! Then Saren pulled a very funny face. She opened her mouth wide, squinted her eyes shut, and extended her tongue all the way out. Based on her expression, it was pretty clear the unappetizing drink did not taste good. Ollie was intrigued by the exchange. Her clapping was not an applause. It was not claps they were not claps to indicate anything or get anyone's attention. She was not trying to alert or inform with the clapping. And of course, each tiny concussion of Staren's palms was like a tiny concussion to Ollie's heart. Opening her eyes and hauling her tongue back into her mouth like it somehow became heavier, Saren shook her head. Then a mirrored scenario began to play out. Ollie still did not take a sip of his own drink, but he allowed their distraction to steal his attention. The twins were quite beautiful. Their golden hair and unusual mismatched eyes, their petite frames and sunny disposition, Ollie was profoundly attracted to them. Rui watched him as he watched them, and the woman was enjoying her view of the situation. The corner of her mouth seemed fixed in the beginning curve of a smile. One of her elbows rested on the arm of her chair with her hand held aloft, and the woman was using her thumb to slowly rotate a gem-studded ring around her index finger. Now Saren held the wooden cup and swirled it around again in the mud, causing an intricate dance in the liquid. She filled the bowl from the larger basin, poured it into one of the unused little wooden cups, and extended the drink to her counterpart. Saren clapped once before taking it. Pap! The sound was identical to her twins. She downed the entire draft with a rather large gulp and let out a satisfied sigh. Saren then also thumped the bowl onto the table and clapped smartly again. Pat, pat. Her eyes bulged. She mouthed the word wow to Ollie. Then Saren smacked her lips, stuck out her own tongue, and scrunched up her face like her twin. Saren was already swirling the strange beverage yet again, and she filled the next bowl. She looked at Ollie expectantly. Why don't I stop there? I feel like I've been going for quite a while now, and the dog is behaving himself. So I don't know, several pages, I think. So yeah, thank you for listening.
You're very welcome. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. So which out of those brews would you have?
Oh, I want to try all of them. I would have to go back multiple times and get all the drinks. Yep.
I quite like the sound of death shroom tea. Sounds quite exciting. What would you have? What would you choose if you had, like, you were in the cafe and you could only have one? Which one?
Right this second. Yeah. The glow water is an important part of this world. The very first drink I mentioned, and the thing that they all had one little sip of, it's like a tonic. And so I'm really curious about that. It's water that's been infused with sunlight, and so it's like invigorating and energizing. Yeah, so that's what it is basically. And so that I'm really curious about. But I even make a point to say that people don't like chug it. We're not drinking it. You just have like a little shot of it. It's a tonic, and then you move on to other things. So I would definitely want to have that because I'm super curious about it. But the muds are actually inspired by a traditional drink from the Pacific Islands that helps to inspire people. I've gotten to experience several ceremonies where people drink, and I've gotten to try the very muddy, sort of dusty tasting drink that is very uplifting and energizing, and I like it. So I wanted to put that into the story. So that's there. So that's also interesting. And I am a juice fan. I don't drink alcohol myself. It just doesn't agree with me. So I drink juice. And so I made up all these fun juice drinks. And yeah, literally, I would go back multiple times. Like, I can't even choose. I don't know what I would choose. I'd probably order 3 drinks at the first time I show up. Have like my arms full of drinks, like walking down the street. Yeah.
Banned the first time you get there because you've drunk all their drinks. We've run out of ingredients. We have no more. Off you go. Oh, he's back again. Oh my goodness. Hide the juices.
Send me on my way. Yeah.
That's so cool. What made you put like a menu in your book? Because that's really unusual.
I needed a break in the story. There is right before this is probably the most erotic scene in the entire book. It's the naughtiest scene.
That's why you stopped, I'm assuming.
Well, I needed a break because there's the naughty parade that I read a couple weeks ago, and then Ollie has a really, really erotic experience, and then they go and have sex somewhere. And so I just needed a break. There was just too much sex all in a row. So I needed them to like, let's go have a drink. It was too much sex.
Fair enough. Well, what is it? Change is as good as a rest, as they say.
Everybody needed a rest. That's exactly what it is. Even the reader needs a rest. Even the reader needs a break.
That's probably true.
Yes, and I used to bartend. I used to drink alcohol. I still love sort of vicariously drinking through other people. I love making cocktails. Before COVID, we used to constantly have potlucks and cocktail parties at our house. And I used to love slinging drinks. I really do. I would make up drinks from scratch. I would find old cocktail, like whatever. I loved doing that, even if I wasn't drinking. And so that was kind of what inspired this menu. I wanted to just put some creativity. Yeah. And initially, I think I wrote this scene with them just like, oh, and they look at a menu, but I don't talk about the menu, and they just order drinks, and then they talk about the drinks. But I thought it would be really cool to have the reader actually see an entire menu that they don't order everything off of it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on this menu that nobody tries. So you read all this stuff. Wait, nobody's getting that thing I just read about on the last page? Nope, nobody's getting that. That was just a teaser for your own imagination. So yeah, it was fun to put together.
Cool. I certainly, yeah, I am genuinely looking forward to reading the whole thing. At the moment, I have only like small teasers from it, and obviously the first bit that you sent. So I am looking forward, and time is ticking.
I know. My goal is to have the out loud read through finished by Halloween. That's my plan, and I'm close to the halfway mark of the 600 pages. So I'm working. I'm going. I'm trucking through it.
Work harder, young man. You're not working fast enough.
Even if I'm not done on Halloween like I'd like, I'll be very close. So it'll be soon. Yeah, I'm on my way.
Fair enough. Well, I will hold you to that. All right. Well, I'm going to bring Reese in because Reese has been very, very patiently in the wings. So hang on, I'm just going to add. Oh, sorry, just showed her device is not connected. Reese, what's happening? Are you connected to our stream? I can see you there. You are.
I think I know what it is.
Hi.
I hear you.
My camera's being weird. There we go.
There you are.
My camera's being extra weird today. Hi.
That's all right. We don't mind weird. I'm
wearing a shirt with mushrooms. Speaking of, we were talking about the thing. Look at that.
Nice.
Mushrooms. How about that?
Nice. See, I thought because we had a chance to talk to you last week in depth, I thought Adam actually hadn't had a chance yet to do that. So I thought it'd be quite nice for him to be able to, have an interview, I suppose, or a one-to-one discussion where he gets an opportunity to sort of share about his writing. So, but you've been waiting so patiently. I thought it'd be nice for you to come in on the conversation. I have got some reading to do with you, but we can do that in a bit once we've had a nice discussion. And this is weird. This weird camera kind of like.
You gotta find the right
Everybody's
spot.
shrunken down, huh?
It's weird. Yeah. I had to try and find the right angle right there. There you go. I feel like I'm leaning off of a chair at the moment. If I fall off, just ignore the fact I've disappeared off the screen. I am still here, just on the floor.
Just don't hurt yourself. We don't want you to hurt yourself.
No, I'll just shriek loudly. I think you've got to make it in style, haven't you? If you're going to fall off anything, come on. You're going to fall. You've got to at least make it look like you deliberately meant to do that. Go on.
Listen, that's the best way to do it because it keeps you from looking like you're making a fool of yourself. It's one of those, hey, that was my fault. Turn it into a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Trying out some new moves.
Is when you see that person who you know has tripped, and you've seen them trip, they haven't hurt themselves because they're still on their feet and they're still functioning and they're not injured or anything like that, but they're kind of like
looking around to see who saw it.
Mm-hmm. No one saw me. It wasn't me. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite funny. See, I still have it in a child. It's laugh at people falling over. It's a bit mean, really, isn't it?
So what's been going on, Reese? I know you're busy, but
today has been a crazy day. I have been running around trying to get stuff done last minute because I'm getting ready to head out of town in the morning. So, yeah,
that's
craziness.
Cool. Do your earrings have a word on them? Or
Yep.
is it just
It actually says, well, let me flip it this way so you can read it. It says Fly Girl. So shout out to House of Swag. I love her merchandise.
Nice.
It's a lady that owns a company out of New York, and the GRL actually stands for something, and I cannot remember what it is right now, and it is so sad. Because
Well,
it's a
that's
really
fabulous.
cool, it's a really cool
Good.
meaning. Thank you. It's a really cool meaning, but I just really at the top off the top of my head, I cannot remember what it is. If I remember before the end, I'll let y'all know.
Isn't it like GAP though? GAP is an acronym, isn't it? And then
Yeah.
you have GAP Kids, but like no one knows no one remembers what GAP actually stands for. They just know it as GAP.
No idea.
Because they don't use it anymore. And a lot of things are like that. It's like KFC. If we didn't know that KFC was Kentucky Fried Chicken initially, nobody would even know what the KFC stood for.
I think we still have Kentucky Fried Chicken on the shop fronts, like underneath the initials. So yeah, we kind of do over here, but it's probably because most people over here kind of like, what is Kentucky
Right.
Fried Chicken? What is it?
Right.
Where is Kentucky? What does that mean?
Exactly. It's like, what part of the country is that? No, that's not even in that country.
Oh, it's a French thing. It's fine.
Oh man, I have a messed up story about that. My brothers and I were, oh my gosh, this was in the 80s, so this was a million years ago at this point. And my dad was actually working for a company where he had to work overnight in the state of Kentucky. And my brother's like, let's play a trick on mom and tell her that daddy's going to Kentucky, but we won't tell her it's the state. So mom gets home. Where's your dad? Oh, he went to Kentucky. And she's like, oh, okay. Hour goes by, 2 hours go by. And she's like, did you say your daddy was going to Kentucky, right? Yeah. Well, what's taking him so long? And where's the chicken? And we are in this house in stitches. We're laughing so hard. My brother's like, he went to Kentucky to state. She's like, so when were y'all going to tell me that? Because I could have been trying to find something to eat for dinner all this time.
Brutal.
I love that. If it sounds like my house is about to explode, it's fine. It's just the alarm. In case you're wondering what that beeping noise is, it will sound like it's about to explode as a bomb, and then it will just stop. So just think about it.
One of these days, though, it might go off. Who knows?
I know. Do you know what? Before, when we first had it installed, I thought that it was like you had to get upstairs before it, like the thing finished beeping. Otherwise, it would send the alarms off. So I would like set the alarm and I'd race upstairs. And it was only recently, like I got told, no, it's just to make sure the doors are locked.
The doors.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
That was it. So it's me like pounding downstairs, and it does. It's like pound down.
It's weird because I think mine only does that when I'm leaving the house, but usually with the stay alarm, it usually doesn't beep. It'll just tell you that stay is activated after so many seconds. But that is strange. Yeah, that would freak me out too. It's like, oh, I gotta go.
It's rushing you. It definitely is rushing you. Yeah.
Get upstairs, woman. Get out the house. Do your chores. Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? Now, I have been asked to do a read for somebody, if that's okay with you both.
Yes, we'd love for you to read, or whoever.
It's not for my back. It's first on behalf of someone else.
Oh, cool.
It is. I am not going to be able to do the accent. I'm telling you, I'm being completely honest. It's a Southern accent, and I don't know how to do a Southern accent in America.
Just read it in your voice. Read it in your voice.
I'm going to do the best I can.
We'll take whatever you got, Jules. It's all good.
Well, where's my camera? That one. So this lovely young man here has asked me to do it, and because I've got his book. Yeah,
I just received my copy of his book 3 days ago. Yeah.
You got it signed, didn't you? Is that right? Did you get yours signed? No, you didn't get yours signed.
Uh-oh. Sorry.
We got you.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Did I freeze? I said, did you get a signed copy?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did get a signed copy.
I was going to say, you got signed.
It froze for a second for me. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't get mine signed. Sorry, Andy. I would love you to sign it. You have to come here though for you to do that. That's the requirements. Ready? All right. Okay. So I am going to do the best I can with this. All right. Indy, hang on a second. Indy, are you there? Let's put me on the camera on the own. So I'm just gonna get. So I'll see you both in a minute. You go. I'm gonna mute you both as well. There you go. I was just thinking. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bit weird. Sort of just. Otherwise, I'll kind of like have to lean one way or the other, and people will miss my face when I'm reading because, like, you know. Okay. But we looked up, and before we knew it, we had made it to the bends leading home. It was one small section of the market that at this time of day, considering the position of the sun, was hidden just beyond the sight of most of those around us. It had already been abandoned for the night. But as we made this trip that we had made more than 1,000 times before, off in a crevice and seemingly resting in the darkness of its covering, we both gradually noticed a familiar shadow. I don't know what made me, but strangely, for a moment, I considered the tales told by the elders, remembering the hyenas. He stood there, and it seemed as if that moment just hung in the air, still as a parker on the coat rack of time. And he stood there, silent and eerily unmoving, still as if he had been drawn into the backdrop of some famous painting. What was unnerving was that I could barely see his eyes. They seemed to be almost masked by this unsettling darkness. But at the same time, it felt as if I could somehow sense his eyes roving my skin, causing my flesh to bump up, sort of like when you suddenly become cold. But in this case, it was more like having a throng of spiders crawling creepily across my skin. But what was wrong with me? This was Iffy. Iffy was, in many ways, practically family, like a surrogate uncle to many of us. This wasn't just some Corker slave. This was Daddy Okoyoki's. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna say that name was completely wrong. This is Daddy Okoyoki's friend and adopted brother. This was ridiculous. My imagination was getting the best of me. I'd been imagining this feeling. I guess that had probably heard the stories for so long that they must have started really getting to me. But then I happened to glance over at Yuri, as if I had almost forgotten for a moment that she had been standing there beside me all the while. You see, mostly for all of our young lives, if I ever found myself shaken or afraid of something, anything, Yuri was there like this unexpected but very much needed lifeline. She had always been my beacon of hope and remembering every wonderful She had always been my beacon of hope and remembering of every wonderful possibility, regardless of whatever situation we happened to find ourselves in, and it was a lot of them. We were kids, but I had grown to love and admire Yuri more and more for her courage that seemed to have no end. I have to admit, I had become stronger through Yuri's presence. But on that particular night, Yuri's face looked in a way that I had never seen. For the first time in our short lives, when I looked into Yuri's eyes, I saw something that I had known often, but it seemed it was never part of Yuri's character. I found something in her eyes that seemed to somehow reach down into the very pit of her soul. For the first time that I could actually ever remember, when I looked into Yuri's eyes, I saw complete and unmitigated fear. In fact, there was something about that particular moment that seemed to be disturbingly familiar to Yuri. There was something in Iffy's manner that Yuri had known before, and that she seemed to fear ever knowing again. As I looked at my best friend, who I knew as well as I believed I could ever know myself, I noticed within her stare that there was visceral recognition and knowing that had seeped to her core. While I was attempting to dismiss my own fear as just silliness, Yuri appeared to be all too familiar with the scent of evil suddenly drifting on our currents of that moment in time. I was going to shut the door. Sorry about that. Daddy Okayoki asked me to come find you to make certain you two girls got home safely, Iffy spoke with his Corker accent. I remember when it was funny to us to hear how Corker seemed to substitute the letters O and I with the letter U. But at that moment, everything about Iffy was suddenly unnerving, and I didn't understand why. It's not good for young girls to be wandering by yourself at dusk. What I noticed was that even though Iffy was speaking of heading home, he didn't seem to be in too big a hurry to separate himself from the casting shadow. I thought about the hyenas again. His voice may have sounded like the Iffy I knew, but there was also something foreboding, unspoken between Iffy and Yuri that I sensed I was missing. If Yuri was afraid, everything in me knew that I should be terrified. Yuri stood stock still. There was something about her look, her eyes that caused my skin to prickle. But none of that made sense. This was Yuri, and it was only Iffy. What was the big deal? We were just kids. Yuri suddenly shouted, I promised I wouldn't tell, as long as you swore by the Father in heaven to leave Nakia alone. You swore. Her eyes looked instantly frantic and filled uncharacteristically with both unfettered hate and seething contempt. Yuri was talking about me. It was as if I was not even there, or maybe she just wished that I suddenly wasn't, for my own protection. Yuri wasn't afraid of Iffy. Yuri was my best friend. Yuri was Okayoki's daughter. Yuri was Uribe. No, Yuri was ready for whatever may happen to her, but what she wasn't prepared for. Yuri was afraid for me. Yuri loved me as her sister, and Yuri would have done anything to protect me. I had no idea that the sound of Yuri's quavering yet courageous voice crying out this single comment would be transfused into the very fabric of this very fabric of my every memory for as long as I had the mind to remember. Even in the last few moments of her beautiful life, Yuri worried more for me than she ever did for her own life. I guess that when everything's all said and done, there are certain animal tendencies, even in people, because when Iffy stepped out into the light, I could almost smell his rabid ferocity. It was as if he was suddenly able to move faster than I had ever seen any man or woman move before in my life. The elders talked of demons living inside of the Corkers. Well, I have news for you. If he was not like the devil, if he looked and moved and glared and thirsted after us as the devil himself. The elders forewarned that Corker males hungered after children. Yuri and I were both only 9 summers aged when that Corker tore out at us. I dashed backwards instinctively, moving just out of his reach. But Yuri had been transfixed. Yuri hadn't moved or made another sound. Yuri stood stock still. Then I screamed, and it was as if I was listening to someone else miles away before realizing that it was actually me. I screamed something fierce as Iffy brutally knocked Yuri down to the ground and pounced, ripping her sarong open savagely, and Yuri screamed. I knew what had been done in that moment. I saw something that no child should ever be made to witness. But Yuri didn't scream because of what she suffered. Yuri screamed because at some point I no longer could. I was eaten up by the shock of what was suddenly, unbelievably being done to my best friend. Yuri was nothing but a sweet little girl. Yuri screamed and fought. She screamed and fought until the air exited her body one final time. but unnaturally through the sudden opening now trained across her throat. It almost looked as if he was smiling up at me. I didn't realise it until some time later, though I had watched it all happen as if it was some horrible dream. If he had been yelling at Yuri to stop screaming, and when she wouldn't stop, if he seemed to pull a knife from what appeared to be thin air, and then raised it across Yuri's throat. And as if he ran off, and others finally began to arrive. It was as if I'd been carried there by some unknown force, and I was suddenly directly over what was gradually transforming into little more than a shell of my former friend. Helplessly, I watched with tears streaming from my eyes as my best friend of only 9 summers aged gagged and drowned in her own blood. Yet it seemed that at that very end of her life, at the point that she possibly could think only one final thought, Yuri looked up at me, releasing her final breath, and smiled. It was in that moment that I believed she knew that she had saved me from suffering a similar fate. And somehow, I believe that in that final moment, Yuri found comfort and security within my safety. Yuri was my best friend. Yuri was Okoyoki. Yuri was Yuribi. Yuri was the wonderful daughter of Daddy Okoyoki, first mother and second mother, and in the end, Yuri did what she had done for me for all our young lives. Yuri had protected her best friend to the bitter end. That was really dark. But and actually quite hard to read. And that was from Indy's book, What If White People Were Slaves? What did you guys think? Not of my reading, because I don't think I read it particularly well. But in terms of like the story itself, what did you think? Let me unmute you both as well, because you're both muted. Yep. There we go. What did you think?
I had to take a breath on that one.
Yeah.
That was graphic and heart-wrenching, and oof. That was a rough one. Man, Indy, you did a great job with that.
I need to know what happens before that. Yeah.
I know, right?
We need to know what happens after. Yeah. I'm glad I've got a copy of the book, because wow. Yeah.
It was that was the first time I'd read that. So I apologize, Indy, for if I pronounce any of the names incorrectly. I read them as I thought they supposed to sound phonetically. So sorry about that. And I definitely couldn't do the accent. But in terms of like Indy. Thank you.
We agree.
But in terms of like,
in the background,
he is, yeah, he's working hard. But in terms of like the actual story, that was really hard to read, because you've got 2 little girls who are experiencing something that they should never ever have to experience in their entire lives, and one, it ends their life, and the other one has to live with the consequences of that. And I just think that is a horrific thing for anybody to go through, but for children, that's horrendous. Very powerful,
really strong. Yep.
I don't know. I know that he's switched it around in the story where he's got the white people are the people who are enslaved, and black people are not. They're the ones who have the power. And I know that he's written it in a way to create empathy not for white people, but for white people to develop empathy for the plight that the slaves were in back during like the slavery in America. And
what our ancestors put them through, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and obviously, like, there's obviously white people out there who do have that. Absolutely. So it's not a blanket, like, well, all people need to know this, because there are people, you know, who do have empathy for it, and do want reparations, and do want the wrongs to be righted and evened out, you know. But for people who don't really understand it, or don't really know about slavery, or the impact that slavery itself can have, and the long-term consequences of it, I think as a book, it not only is a fascinating read, but it gives so much historical context to such a horrific period in time.
And we're so repressive about our history in this country. We cover it all up as much as possible. Yeah, it's important to shed light on these things and talk about history in a realistic way. Yeah.
It's really interesting because, like, over here, I remember when I was in year 7 at school, so that I was 11 years old, and we were obviously doing history, but we do world history from like beginning when we start school, like 5 years old upwards, and the world history incorporates the slave trade, as well as various other things. So it has the good and the bad, and we use it as a learning thing. So it becomes more of a lesson in terms of not making the same mistakes, not repeating what's already happened. So we learn about, you know, what happened during the slave trade. We learned about the slave ships. And I remember looking at a sheet, it's either a sheet of paper or it was like a photocopy from a textbook, or it was a textbook, I can't remember. But I remember looking at it, and there was this image of how they laid the slaves out in the slave ships. And they're all like squished together like sardines. It was just awful. And I didn't go home thinking I'm such a terrible person because I'm white. I went home thinking, oh my gosh, what a horrible thing that we did to these people. So I'm kind of, I think he's done a good thing here, and it needs to be shared, I think.
Helping spread sympathy and empathy and understanding and knowledge is all important, all good stuff. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's because obviously, like, I know about my schools, like, and what we do as an education, but I don't know about the American education system. It's very different from ours. So what do you learn about slavery at all? Do you learn about, like, anything to do with Native Americans or indigenous?
Oh, they talk a lot about it in our schools, but it's from the perspective of the conquering heroes mostly. It's
glossed over.
Look at how great the settlers did when they went through and they tried to make friends with the natives, and then there were no natives and they took over this land, and like they just gloss over the genocides and everything else. Yeah. And yes, they talk about the slave trade just like you talked about. And in the South, I lived in South Carolina for a few years as an adult, and they talk about the Civil War like it is still happening down there. It's
wow.
The country's got some issues.
Wow.
Stuff. Like, speaking of this, so to the slave trade issue, we are, as far as I'm aware, we're the only country that fought a fucking civil war over slavery. Every other country was like, okay, you know what? Why don't we stop doing this horrible thing and just not do this anymore? And our country was like, no, we want to do this forever.
I don't know, and I'm going to mess up the history here because I'm not like an expert at all on history, but we had there was a black slave in our country, and he actually went to court, and it was the judge in this country who was like, do you know what, actually you're right, you are a human being, you shouldn't be owned by anyone, you're free. And went against what the general population was. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a bit of an uprising from that in terms of like people being unhappy with the decision, but the decision was accepted nonetheless. And no, you're right, we certainly didn't go to war over it. We just was like, yeah, they're people. Which is it's quite horrific, really, isn't it, that you know, people, I don't know, what's your thoughts on critical race theory? Because that's something else as well that I think is, my personal views, I think it's a good thing to do critical race theory. I don't see an issue with that.
The crazy part about that whole subject is that people are, hey, Melanie, that people are making it a big issue when it's just telling you what actually happened. It's giving you the facts. I was lucky enough growing up in New Orleans that our schools gave us full on definitions of what was happening. We were actually able to get more in-depth information than some other schools were, and it was only because of the schools that I was actually privileged to be able to go to. I mean, they were public schools, but one of the schools I went to, specifically my high school, was a magnet school. You had to test to get in that school. That wasn't something that everybody had the ability to actually, get a chance to experience. So there are some people that were undereducated about the situation because they weren't fed the information because of the school that they went to. And it's awful because, just like you said, it's American history, period. So it needs to be taught from front to back, beginning to end, good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to call it.
It's really interesting that you guys only do American history, whereas we do American history, but we also do European history, we do some African history, we do Asian history, Australasian history. We kind of look at it across as a global
spectrum
thing.
I think
and I don't know whether that's because we would just be bullies. No, I don't. I think some of that comes across as the fact that we were bullies, weren't we? Because we went over and decided we were going to just own what was it? Something 60% of the world, or 2/3 of the world, which we only our British Empire only officially ended in 1997. So,
well, and that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. Is we get world history to a small degree, I think, in school. I know I studied the history of China and all sorts of other things and ancient Egypt and stuff, but it was temporary. Because America is an empire, it's not a country, it's an empire pretending to be a country, we have to study all of us. You have to study the history of the South. You have to study the history of New England. You have to study the history of the expansion through the Midwest, through the Texas and Louisiana Purchase, and then the expansion out all the way to the West Coast and all the way to where I am up here in Oregon and the development of, you have to learn all of the history of America, which is not just a country, it's this massive empire that stretches for way too big, has way too many people. Yeah. So we have to learn all that, which takes years. Southern history was a whole year in Southern history.
That's a couple of college courses right there.
Hang on a sec. You said that America views America as an empire.
No, America does not view America as an empire. America pretends to be a country, but underneath we are definitely an empire. We are an empire. We act like an empire. The person in charge has style power for 4 years. We're not a country. I lost. I think the powers that be are upset about what we're talking about.
We had you frozen, but we pretty much heard your audio.
See, that's really interesting that you say that, because I see a lot of American people on online forums and on social media and various other places, and they have very strong opinions about America. And America is the greatest, and America is the best, and America is the goodest, everything. And it's quite interesting that perception is sort of throughout. It doesn't matter what state you go to, or which kind of area they come from or live in. It tends to be an opinion that is thought of quite a lot. Is that because, do you think there's a reason for that? Or do you think it's, historically, I'm thinking going back to Indy's book in terms of the slavery, do you think it's partly due to that, where there was this feeling of superiority over other people, or I don't know. Yeah. Reese's yes.
That's the boss of it, Jules. Look, and Adam can probably attest to this growing up in the, spending time in the South. It's about the superiority complex. A lot of it is, oh, we're the greatest, we're this, we're that, and then they're still walking around with a flag that has no meaning and no power at this point, and refuse to get rid of it. That really nobody wants to justify the things that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Confederate flag is what she's talking about. That
I got that.
Yeah,
that's the flag I thought. Yeah.
We know what we're talking about here.
See, American history. I've learned my American history. I don't know about the Confederate flag.
That shit, like, yeah.
See, we had a group called the British. Hang on, what were they called? British National Party, and they were deemed a racist party and were banned outright. We don't allow any racist, any offensive groups at all in this country. And so they used to fly the Union Jack, which is our flag, the GB flag, or no, the United Kingdom flag. And they also used to fly the English flag, like just the St. George's Cross.
George's Cross. Yeah.
So you go, see. And so people who used to fly that but weren't part of that used to get condemned for flying it because they looked like they were part of this group. And people stopped flying the flag for quite a long time. And even now, people are still a little bit wary about flying it in case it comes across as racist, even though it's just our flag. It's nothing racist, right? You know. Yeah,
it's the association. Yeah, I mean, a swastika was a sign of peace before Hitler adopted it. You know, so
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's shocking. And we have got Carolyn who has joined the crew. And let me see, Carolyn. I don't know if you've got a camera. I can add you to the stream if you like. Have you got a camera? Or are you just listening? I can hear an echo of my voice. I sound so London.
Very British. Very British.
Yeah. Not very BBC. No.
She popped in. She it looks like she put a note she wanted to read today.
She did look like she wanted to read today, but I'll respond to her with a yes, she can. There you go, and then she can get back to us when we get a chance. So that I mean, that hurt my soul reading that. I honestly did find that really difficult. Can I read the blurb? Because obviously, like, just showing this is cool, but it doesn't actually give you a huge. It gives you a little bit of an insight. So it says, authors poise the unprecedented question: what if white people were slaves? The book is a remarkable surrogate tale of American history, reflecting how the country may have been if white people would have been the slaves at the founding of this country, and people of color the slave masters. The story picks up... The story, sorry, he's just messaged me saying the forward is much better. I can read that if you prefer, Indy. Hang on a second.
That's what he's interrupting you.
Okay.
That's good.
As you have requested, Indy.
Move on to the forward.
All right. This is from a millennial perspective. So, Honesty Brennan asked the question, what if white people were slaves? I often wondered what the world would be like if racial and socioeconomic tables were turned. What it would be like if black and brown Americans were the dominant class of people. Would white people actually want to be black and assume everything that comes with it? Will it then be white lives matter? I remember watching Jane Elliott's Brown Eye, Blue Eye experiment videos and appreciating her attempt to make her race open their eyes on how it would be if the shoe was on the other foot. Many could not hold back tears, while others dismissed themselves and did not want to continue to participate. Just as a side note with that one, the children who took part in that actually suffered long-term mental health, serious mental health disorders from that as a consequence of that experiment. And it's been since known as a banned experiment. You cannot do it now because of the detrimental effect that it had on the kids, even though it was only over 2 days. And she did swap them over. So you have children with brown eyes, children with blue eyes separated, brown-eyed children told they're nothing, blue-eyed children told they're brilliant on one day, and they automatically segregated themselves into groups. So then the following day, they swapped rounds. So the brown-eyed children were told, you're amazing, and the blue-eyed children were told, you're nothing. And then what happened was at the end of the experiment, obviously you had complete disarray like with the emotions that were going on with kids in the class, and there was several who actually attempted suicide, some who actually ended up actually killed themselves, and most ended up with mental health problems. And so you can't do it. It's a banned experiment.
Yeah, the ethics of that are highly questionable. Let's
yeah. I appreciate what Honesty is saying here. I completely appreciate Jane's attempts at trying to open people's eyes. She did it soon after the assassination of his name's gone completely out of my head. The I Have a Dream.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King.
Thank you. Sorry, my brain went completely blank there. Yeah. So she did it after his assassination, and obviously that was racially motivated as well. And so she was trying to bring awareness to the children about treating each other with kindness, because everyone's human. It kind of backfired though, and it actually ended up causing mental health problems instead. But anyway, that's a side note from that. This book presents an insight into what the world could be, as well as what it would have been during the development of the United States of America, as we know it if those racial tables were turned. This book will allow white people to perhaps place themselves into the shoes of the African slave for a fleeting moment, and to possibly help them to experience the emotional attachments the enslaved descendants read and learn about the tragic plight of their ancestors. A direct line of tragedy and trauma is drawn within this narrative. My personal objective in writing this book was to vicariously reciprocate the American experience that many of my people live daily to the American majority. We live these tragic stories and horrific images every day of our lives. But what if white people were slaves helps to depict our story from the other way around? The resulting mental imagery is not for the faint of heart. We've heard that, I think, already. In fact, it has often been referred to as paradoxical, prevalent, and wonderfully provocative. But I encourage you to draw your own conclusion. In full disclosure, I have an adopted white uncle who has experienced the same degree of misfortune, mistreatment, and disenfranchisement as African Americans and convicted felons. He suffered by association. Simply put, even though he was a white man, he was raised by an African American family, and he has never possessed a birth certificate. Wow. Under the circumstances, he could not legally show that he was entitled to the privileges often connected to the American majority. If given the opportunity to make his life better, I would never want to see this happen to him or any of my white fans. But this book now presents a way for all of us to think deeper and more profoundly, to feel every emotion felt by the other side, and teaming up with my father in writing this narrative has been a great journey. From a Generation X, this is Indy's forward. I'll read his too. From a Gen X perspective. The concept of this book came to me back around 1996. The premise was based on a popular ideal. In order for you to truly understand another individual, you must first walk in their shoes. The unfortunate underpinning of humanity is our predisposition to judge another book or individual by its cover, without taking the time to attempt to understand and appreciate the deviation I can't read at all tonight. Sorry. And appreciate the derivation of his or her psychology, catechisms, or idiosyncrasies. You're trying to make me not be able to read, aren't you, Indy? That's why you made me read this. All these big words. I'm like, ugh. No, that's sarcasm. That's just pure sarcasm.
It's awful.
It is this inherent inherent peculiarity within who we are and the spawning ignorance of this custom that inevitably resolves into racism, perpetuating the ultimate demise of an otherwise thriving, civilized, and communal society. The challenge with racism and any form of prejudice or discrimination, especially that which has nonsensically plagued America since the inception of our known republic, is that it is often predicated on senseless attacks to our differences instead of choosing to celebrate our diversity. Racism is as much of a disease as AIDS, cancer, or any other terminal illness that can be contracted and passed on, whether hereditary through blood transfusion or by airborne infection, yet light years more contagious.
And a whole lot more deadly.
Yeah, for sure. What if white people were slaves essentially provides you with an opportunity to attempt to walk in your neighbor's shoes and to be exposed to the privileges or prohibitions that he, she, or that particular sector of our global community find themselves inadvertently subjugated. The reality may be difficult to accept, but sometimes people just don't know. While at other times it is merely more agreeable to our conscience to simply embrace denial. The American dream has always been for the American. The challenge arises only when we attempt to limit the definition of who, though born or legally nationalized and raised within the confines of this country, qualifies to be a member of that indivisible party under God and our national government. 2 decades ago, I began to imagine a history that was radically different from what we experienced, where the roles of the races were inverted, while hypothesizing the type of country that would result in consequence. What would go through the mind of David Duke if forced to watch the likes of Kendrick Lamar or Idris Elba savagely yet legally beat and rape a young Surrey Cruz, Elle Fanning or Taylor Swift in real life? Elle Fanning or Taylor Swift in real life, and within a community where everyone knows but no one cares. In the alternative, would Black Lives Matter if the Black lives were instead white lives and the people of colour were the privileged and the enfranchised majority? These are questions that we are possibly incapable of answering truthfully because these hypotheticals are far-reaching from our dysfunctional reality. But what if white people were slaves is my humble way of bringing these types of possibilities to the forefront of your minds to give you something to truly consider. I realise that it is not a surefire cure for the challenges that we as a people currently face, but I guess in the end, if there is any person's life who is positively changed, given the possibility to imagine this impossible reality, we've accomplished what this book was initially set out to do. Honestly, and I invite you now to imagine life as we know it, history as we have been taught, but suddenly in the reverse. And that's very powerful.
I think that's a brilliant concept. I think it's such a brilliant concept. I can't wait to read my copy of it. Yep. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel, I mean, this is specifically towards you, Adam, in terms of, because you're white, I'm assuming. That's a big assumption, isn't it?
Yes, I'm so white. My ancestry is hideous. Ugh, yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of a white person, do you feel like
Indy, oh my gosh.
Accurate. Well noted.
In large letters.
Well, it is now in black and white or blue and white, should I say? There you go. Well, now that's clarified.
Got that out of the way.
Because you're white, Adam, speaking on behalf of white people, do you feel like if you were to be taught critical race theory or about the white ancestors who enslaved Black people, do you feel like personally offended by that?
No, I want to learn all that. I thought I was learning that when I was in school. I thought I was getting real history, and it was only much later that I learned that there was so much more to it. Yeah, I wish that I was given the real details. But that goes for most classes in school. I feel like our school systems are not great in this country, whether it's sex education or the history of this country that we're in itself. I feel like it was all inferior, insufficient, not good enough. Yeah, I absolutely want to know the real history. And I think that the term critical race theory is a problem. I think that is a trigger for a lot of people. And I just want the real history. I'm sorry that there is a term that goes with that now. Critical race theory is now a thing that, race, and then the shitty white people get all like Karen about it. You know how I mean? Karen, fucking hell. But
yes, it just gets more ridiculous.
That term I feel like is really triggery, and I feel like we just need to hear the history. Let's just hear the history of what actually happened in this country. White people were horrible to everyone, and that needs to be part of like every history class for all the way through. How was settling the nation when you first came? We murdered everyone. Okay. How was establishing the government? We killed those people too. Okay. How was the future? They murdered everyone in the future also. Okay. Let's just not forget those tidbits of the story that are important. The way they talk about the Pilgrims settled the Plymouth Rock and all that stuff and whatever. We know that they killed the native peoples that lived there, but it's mentioned in those classes as part of the conquest of white people, not as the genocide of the natives. It's not taught that way. And I don't think that is, I think it's wrong to teach it the way that we teach it. I think it is wrong. I think that we're dishonoring our history by whitewashing it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I think my take on it is the word critical isn't about criticizing, it's having that critical analysis of it. And I think that some people hear the word critical and hear it as criticism, and that's not what it is. It's a critical analysis of. And over here, the word race in terms of like...
Did you see that? Everybody see that?
No, I didn't see that. What did it say?
Yeah, right there. That's
yeah, that's true. Upwards of 90% of the indigenous population died in the years leading up to the arrival of the Mayflower in November 1620.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, and you're right. And the term race over here in England and the British Isles, we don't hear the word race and think, oh, that's terrible. We just associate it with human race. And like, it's just a word that depicts different cultural groups. We don't tend to use people of color as a term over here. We use their background, their culture as their term. So yeah, I suppose it's a different way of kind of looking at it. But the way that we look at culture and the way that we look at different I'm just trying to think of the right word. The sort of like different belief systems that people have. It's all dealt with it within our courses of like social education and history, and we teach religious studies as well, and various other things, and that all gets incorporated as part of that. So it's never treated as, although we learn about slavery, we just don't, like, if we were taught critical race theory over here, I don't think anyone would be that like upset about it. But then we didn't have all the slaves shipped over here. So we don't
Right.
share that kind of history.
We have such a diverse culture here that's sort of our only cultural quality, is that it's really, really diverse. Is that the way you talk about, you talk about people in England as where are you from? You're from, the Middle East. Oh, you must be, you're Israeli or whatever, whatever. We have generations of people that don't know who their families were, like that. We don't even have the opportunity to be like, oh, and your family from Zaire, your family from Zimbabwe, from the nation that used to be South Africa before it was taken over. People in this country don't know who their ancestors were. I mean, it's so different. This empire is so different than what you're doing. The way that we view religion. You mentioned religious studies a second ago. That the white Christian authority in this nation, they know that they're right. They know they have the power. They know that they're the ones in charge, and that they are ordained by God to be there. That they're supposed to be in charge.
It's the Crusades all over again.
It is.
We get taught. We teach our kids now that the presidency that you had under Trump was an authoritarian state, and you guys are kind of still working towards getting out of that. So it's
because we're an empire. We are not a country. We're an empire, and that's why we had an imperialistic.
No, you're not. You're not an empire. And the reason why you're not an empire is because an empire has a leader who actually has power. Your leader actually has no power in the world.
No, but he knew how to draw enough of the negative stuff to put himself in a position to look like he had power.
That's true.
It's all about perception in the U.S., and that is the problem.
Yeah, and that I think for most people that equates to power, even if it's unrealistic across the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The cult of Trump is that they believe in him, in him, like religiously, dogmatically,
Now we have Caroline. I think Caroline has popped back up. So
good. Let's talk about something different besides Trump. Anything besides Trump.
Oh no, she's gone again.
Oh no, we lost her. She was up for 1 second.
Oh no.
Anything but Trump.
She's back again. Hang on a second. Hang on. Oh, Carolyn.
No, I'm here.
Don't touch anything. Don't press any buttons.
No, I'm here. You're just not going to. Here I am. Okay.
Hi. How you doing?
I've been here. I've seen the whole thing. And that's fine. I was just trying to figure out what platform I really wanted to be on, since we're all over the place. It's kind of hard to keep up.
You were traveling around a little bit, like you were dipping in here, dipping in there, like one of these people, teenagers who go on like an 18 to 30s holiday, and just to do excursions here, there, and everywhere because they're not sure what they want to do. Right, Carolyn, what's going to be easier? Have you got your phone on and the computer?
Oh no. I think I'm on StreamYard right now. So
Right, Carolyn, what's going to be easier? Have you got your phone on and the computer?
I did. That's the only way I can keep up with what was going on.
Can you do me a favor and just mute everything else?
But I can do YouTube. It doesn't matter.
That's fine. If you could just mute everything, turn everything down apart from StreamYard, so you've just got one thing going, because I can hear myself about an hour after I've said it. That's better. I can't hear myself anymore. Oh no, you've muted yourself. That's why I can't hear you. All right, okay. So I hear you're going to do some reading for us tonight. It'd be lovely to. There you go. I can see you now. You look lovely. Oh no, you've gone. Oh, Carolyn. Oh, okay.
Lost her again.
We've lost her again. Okay. I'll give her a minute and see if she comes back again. Okay. So it's really interesting how other like different places do their education. And isn't it interesting how a book can actually trigger quite an in-depth conversation about, and I don't even think we've touched on anything traumatic or horrific in terms of the situation that these people are in. I don't know if these characters in his novel that I was reading, whether they were black or white. I don't know. So I've got a feeling that they were white and the person who attacked them was black, I think. But I don't know. I might have that completely wrong. And the only reason why I think that is because they were the ones who were attacked and abused. Whereas, and I assume that would have been the norm during slavery. So, but you see, what you guys are going through, our country has been through quite a few times. But like the last time was when we got invaded by King Henry. And he sent his army around the country after he managed to kill the King Herod, and he Harold even he sent his men around the country knocking on people's doors saying, now you must speak French, you speak no more English. And we weren't allowed to. Well, I wasn't around then, but last week. Yeah, and he forced everyone to speak French from then on. So we were a French-speaking country for a while. Oh, okay. The two girls in the. Oh, wow, interesting. The two girls in the reading were black.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I gotta read. Can't wait to read what happened beforehand. Yeah, to lead up to that moment.
Oh yeah.
But then doesn't that tell you about the character of that person and the sort of like what may have led up to his demise, I suppose, for want of a better word, where he's kind of, I don't know what.
The white attacker. Yeah, that's what my brain was saying. He's the slave. Yeah. He's run off after killing a black girl. That's. Yep.
I love how Indy's getting. It's like, hang on, I need to make sure this is
yeah.
Right. Hang on.
Here comes another spoiler.
Jules, shush! Stop speaking. Favorite slave. Interesting.
It was retaliation.
So I'm aware that there were favored slaves, but I can't imagine that they would have been treated way better than everyone else. Not necessarily in the book. I'm talking about in real life, but did you know that there's more slaves around now than there ever used to be? That currently now, there's about 500,000 slaves in existence now today. It's a bit shocking.
Crazy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, worldwide. Yeah, and the two most common are actually sex slaves, like forced into prostitution.
Human trafficking.
Male, female, or children, or workers like for farms or like servants for houses. Yeah. So it's still not something that has actually been got rid of, unfortunately. Even
as long as powerful people are powerful, they're going to take advantage of weaker people. That'll always be
exactly.
I wonder if we'd ever plateau as a civilization. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was way off. 29.8 million people live in modern slavery. I was way off. I thought 500,000 was a lot, but that's a country. That's like the population of a country. Wow. I'm shocked. Yeah. I'm genuinely shocked by that statistic. That's just shocking. Wow. Yeah. Now, Carolyn's back. I was just about to say, I don't know if we're going to be able to get her back or not. Let me add her to the stream. Carolyn. Yay! Now, don't move. Slavery generates $32 billion for traffickers globally each year. Wow.
Man, that's
That
insane.
is truly shocking. Yeah. I suppose it's probably similar to the drugs trade, isn't it? Drugs generate billions as well. But
anything people want,
greed.
Mm-hmm.
Greed all the way.
That's the bulk of it. It's greed.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Carolyn, are you there? Carolyn, can you hear
background?
I also want to listen to her read. And I'm like, Carolyn, are you there?
So what now? Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Okay, so y'all heard me looking for my book.
Was that where you went?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you.
Work from home day. How about it? Y'all good?
We're good. How are you? We're all good. Bless you.
Sorry.
That was a dramatic sneeze. Whoa.
This is
Excuse me.
work from home day.
That was
So
so
we good.
dramatic.
We're
Oh my God. Sorry.
It's all good. You carry on. You carry on looking for your book, Carolyn. We'll just keep talking, and then that's when you're ready.
But yeah, if white people were slaves, I don't think we wouldn't have the issues that we have now.
I think if white people were slaves, I think you still have the same issues. It'd just be reversed. Because I think it's all about the oppression, isn't it, of people as individuals and as a group and as a society as a whole within that group. And if you're going to oppress the group, they're going to live with the repercussions of that. I'm not sure if she's still here or not.
The superiority complex.
Yes, I'm going to take her off the screen, bless her, so she doesn't have that staying on. Oh, wait. Oh, bless her. She's obviously looking for a book. Yeah, so there you go. So, yeah, what if white people were slaves? And it's book 1. So, and I know he's planning on doing more, which would be really cool. This is years 1810 to 1830. So,
Ooh, Andy, you're going all the way through the 1960s, aren't you? Oh, that's going to be good. I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Wait, what year was Jim Crow? Where I was.
Look, yes.
Indy, you are on fire today. Have you been drinking by any chance?
We're going to do a wine
like
night
Indy
with
being
this
part of the conversation.
Oh my goodness.
He's our ghostwriter today.
Yeah, what year was Jim Crow?
Ooh, I can't even remember. I cannot remember. Was it the late 1800s, early 1900s? So the freedom year is where everything basically started, and I cannot for the life of me remember what year it is. I'm not going to sit up here and make up numbers. I will not do that.
Well, like I did with slavery, and it completely backfired. Oh, there we go. 1865 to 1877.
And people had to walk around with papers.
Yes. Yeah. That. I mean, in a way, that's kind of what a lot of what people are upset about now, isn't it? About having identity cards and saying, oh, you know, that they're being tracked and all this kind of stuff, and sort of putting it as an akin to this. And it's got nothing to do with that. It's just, you know,
it's security at this point. Before, it was to literally determine who and what you were based on that piece of paper.
Yeah, and then
in South Africa, they had that same issue around apartheid. It was the same thing. If you didn't carry your paperwork, you can go to prison.
And in South Africa, there's actually like you had like the slum camp places where lots of black people ended up because they had no home, they had no money, they couldn't get a job because of the color of their skin and various other things. Oh, hang on, I'll come back to that. So Jim Crow laws ended, they were abolished with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay, so then that was then, because there's still pictures, isn't there, of lynchings and things from around this era.
Like they're still happening in some areas of the South.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's shocking. Where? Like in the South part of America, or 100 years?
Yep. It's I know Texas was probably one of the most recently televised one as far as the news was concerned. But yeah, they're still doing stuff like that. Actually, no, I'm wrong. There was something that happened in Atlanta maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it's still recently. There's still things going on. And it's ridiculous that at this point that the Ku Klux Klan is able to walk around parading as a group because they can pay for the parading license. That's it. They can pay for the license and they can get security and they can walk around like it's a regular old happy parade day. It's awful. I don't even want to get started. I'm gonna just get upset all over again.
Don't get upset. We don't like an upset race. We so you guys have freedom of speech, and I know that I hear a lot that you're the only country that has that freedom, but the whole of Europe has the ability to speak freely. It's just that we have a freedom of expression. What it comes with is a set of rules of what you can't do. So you can say racial slurs, you can say horrible things about people, you can discriminate, but there's severe consequences for your actions. And so you have the freedom to say whatever you like. There's no restrictions, but you do have heavy consequences, and racist groups like that are not allowed at all.
Yeah, America's got none of that shit.
No.
None of that. We're just like, yeah, the Ku Klux can be its own shit, where they can have their parades, just like Reese said, and
as long as they got the money. We're back to the greed again.
Kids to be racist little shits too. Yep, it's there's no system in place, like you're saying, to come in and be like, oh, you're a racist piece of shit, so you don't get to be here anymore. Like we don't have that. There's nobody
we put us in prison
because they're in charge. They take the hood off, and it's like, oh, you're the boss of that corporation over there, and the fucking mayor. Like,
wow.
Seriously,
you can't go into you can't run for office or anything like that if you've been involved with any of those groups. You can't be in the police force if you've been in any of those groups. In our country,
police force was the Ku Klux Klan at one point.
Yes.
That's the problem.
I did know. Yeah,
that is the problem.
Shocking. It is shocking. Now, I think Carolyn
our police started as lynch mobs. That's.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really scary. It is really scary. Hey, Carolyn.
Hey.
You look really chilled.
It's been a different day. I plan on working out when I finish. But I have to try to give some of my time to the Book Slam, whether I read or not. I do enjoy it. This is one platform I really do enjoy being a part of. And Adam and Reese, guys, I just love you.
She doesn't like me very much, but she loves you both, so it's all right.
Adore you.
I do love you, Jules. I mean, come on, you bring character and substance too. But come on, Adam with those reeds and the cocktails. I'm like, ooh, do I need to try one of those? But anyway, we good.
We know where your head's at. It's all right, Karen. Don't worry.
Yeah, just enjoying it. It's a good release for me. Honestly, it is. So no, the entire show, definitely, Jules. I just love that European accent. So I'm good. That British accent. Love it.
I just sound like an Essex person most of the time, even though I don't come from Essex. So I just know I sound a bit Essex.
That's okay. That's good.
But there you go. Well, I apologize because I butchered the names and I butchered the way I read.
No.
So
I think
for
I
that.
think we understood everything that was being said without
Mhm.
even saying what. None of that. I mean, I think it flowed very well. So no, it's like Adam was saying earlier, and I take from Adam on that the way you pronounce the way he pronounces a name, it could be pronounced several different ways. And
That's
I
true.
am the same way when I name my characters. Some people say, "Are you saying Karen?" I said, "No, I said Corinne." And that's what I meant, but how you read it and what you want to bring to that character. So no, you did not butcher anything.
Thank
We
you.
understood exactly what you were saying. So it's it's
Mhm.
it's a okay with us. It's definitely
Thank you.
a okay with me. And Reese,
Thank
I had to take a phone call, so I didn't get to hear you. And I love Reese. Reese is very
I'm sorry.
imaginative.
Risa's just been chatting with us. She hasn't read anything today, so you actually
Yeah,
haven't missed
yeah.
any of her
Good.
reads
Okay.
anyway. So
Okay.
it's all right.
Okay.
You're all
Good. Because I was like, last week, Reese and Sterling. I'm like, and she said, I don't live that life, Mom. And I'm like, for real, you know. So yes, I heard you all. I heard everything. I got tickled, but you have to put yourself into your character, or your story will not come alive. So
Mhm.
so that's it. So you guys got a minute for me?
Yeah,
We'd
for
love that.
sure. For sure. We'd
Okay.
love
Thank
that.
you. It's optional. Okay. After the conference, I retreated to my room and decided to sit on the balcony. It was warm and relaxing. I was listening to some music and smelled a fragrance in the air, but was more interested in relaxing to the sounds of Frankie Beverly and Mays. After the morning, after Joy and Pain, Southern Girl, the Commodore, Zoom, now I know what that fragrance is. It's the scent of Mary Jane. When I think of Rick James, I start humming the tune. I'm in love with Mary Jane. She's my main thing. Okay, my phone rings. I answer it. It's Victor. He's asked me, what am I up to? I told him I believe I'm getting a contact. He says, what? I responded to contact. He asked how. Explained I was sitting on the balcony and smelled something, and later I figured it out. I think my neighbors are smoking. He laughs. Yo, man. I start laughing and he asks me, can we meet for dinner? Sure. I could um I could answer. He asked if I could come up to his room. I said yes. Then he stated, can we go to dinner? Yeah, why not? I just want to walk around. I just don't want you walking under the influence. I'll be up to get you. So we both laughed. That's funny. Dinner was good. Conversation was easy. Victor took a deep breath after a couple of beers and told me he was sorry for the way things ended. And he wanted to make things right between us. He just needed me to give him the opportunity. He said he loved me and messed up. And out of all the uncertainty of being hurt in the past, he put that baggage on me. Not intentionally, but admitted he knew it was all about him. And he did not know how badly it would affect. And she looked like the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. He he looked more relaxed. I wanted to ask why. He felt though he had asked, but I felt that was too much for tonight. Let's forget. Let's forgive. I will credit that to my inner growth. The break meant stronger, not bitter. I love me. I know God loves me more. I will accept this apology and accept Him. But another conversation will have to be had. The hotel had a club downstairs. We went. It was small, smoky, crowded, reminiscent of the club on the cruise ship. We had a drink, but I could not take the noise anymore. You know the type. The music is so loud you cannot hear. that you was just there for fun in your teens and 20s. It was going to be a flyover. Now I can say it is time for me to leave. We go upstairs to the lounge and my ears are ringing. I laugh and shake my head. Told him I had felt like I had attended a concert and sitting too close to the speakers. Very familiar with that. It has happened a couple of times in the past. Victor asked when was I leaving back for home. Saturday morning. I did not want to be running after the conference, being in rush hour traffic to get to the airport, just to hurry up and wait. So Saturday morning it is. I have no layovers, straight flight home. We get to my room, and he wants to know my thoughts about us getting back together. It is doable. Let's just sit, determine, simmer if this is going to be an exclusive relationship. He jerks back and look at me and said, absolutely. Why would it not be? No, I want to ensure we're on the same page. I want to take this slow. He asked, so you can clear out your fellows you may have hanging around. I shot back, no, so you can clear out your harem. Victor, I'm not in the mood to argue, just not taking anything for granted. With several good qualities as a couple at one point. Being open with each other, we could talk about anything. We relied on each other, and honesty was one of the things that we had. He nodded in agreement. We walked up to me, hugged me, kissed me. You only get one love, and I want my one love back. We cuddled some more. It had been a long time, but it felt so special. Vic held me tight, wanted me to leave, but I asked him out. I get it. Take a shower. He joins me. We start again. Gentry, you just do not know how you not returning my calls affected me. I said, you took the chance. Let's be honest. It hurt me as well. It was best for you and me to stay away from each other. It was not going to be pretty. Now, do not ruin the evening. I told him things from our former relationships are going to have to come up. Let's keep it civil. So there will be no finger pointing. He agreed. I told him we will probably see each other Sunday or Monday, if that would be okay. I walked him to the door and went back to bed to rest before the last day of the conference. Did I put you guys to sleep?
No, I loved that. I loved it.
Oh, hang on a second.
Well, thank you.
Hello. I was trying to get myself back onto screen and I couldn't find the button. That was awesome. Go on, Adam, because you stopped. Go on.
I love your character getting a contact. That's awesome. That brought me so much joy. I was smiling. Oh man, that's so good.
What did you think, Reese?
Gentry is a character. I mean, every time that Carolyn's come on and read pieces of her story, I've been cracking up. I've been intrigued, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I wonder what she's about to get into next, because I can't wait to hear the next piece. I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was really nice. I really enjoyed listening to you read that, actually. It was really soothing. You read it in such a soothing way. It was really nice listening to you.
She's different. She is intriguing. She's independent. She's a lot of things.
Well, but it's like Melanie. She could read like the ingredients on a cereal packet, and I would be like, "Wow, Honestly, she's just like, you've got that really nice, calm,
That I didn't.
I'm like, wow, I like this. I could just listen to this. All right. So, what is this from a book that you've got published, or is this one that you're in the process of writing, or where are you up to with it?
Can you guys still hear me?
Did you hear me, Carolyn?
Audio cut out almost again.
Can you hear me?
I'm glad she didn't cut out while she was reading.
I think
Yeah,
so.
I know, right? I love how she freezes in exactly the same position each time as well. And it's exactly the same angle too, with the same facial expression. She must have like this little photo that she slides across
I'm
the
still
screen.
here.
Like,
Are you
I've
there?
got some stuff.
We
Yeah.
got you.
Did you is this book published? Have you released it? Oh, such a little thing makes so much noise. Right, Carolyn, we cannot hear you, or you just kind of frozen again. So I'm going to let you go.
And can see and hear you. Are we here?
I can't now.
Yes.
Oh, no.
It just keeps cutting back and forth.
Oh, okay.
I have.
Carolyn, you're kind of freezing quite a lot.
I have released it.
No, I can't hear you. You're
Yeah.
cutting out a huge amount. Let me. Did you have you released the book yet? Did you hear my question? No, I don't think she can hear me. But I'm going to let her go. Carol, I'm gonna let you go because your camera's freezing so much we can't actually hear you or see you properly because you're freezing too much. Right, so I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. It's been really interesting talking to you, Adam, because I've not really had a chance to talk to you properly about your book and the reasons why you write it the way you are and everything. And thank you for your read and thank you so much for the really delightful conversation, Reese. And obviously you, Adam, as well. But Reese, you kind of like joined in with just the conversation, which was awesome. So always a pleasure. So I'm going to let you go. Love you both. Love you as well, Caroline. Thank you so much. And Indy, you have genuinely like kept us cheerful all evening. It's really quite funny. So more of that, please.
And yep.
Not only well informed, but also like perfect little statements. So thank you so much. So I'm going to wrap it up. Have a very, very, very wonderful evening, everyone, and I will see you same time, same place, this time next week. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.